Go.
Okay, hello there. I'm gonna take you on a circular tour here. Number one, New York City Hall, right behind me. Municipal building, right behind me, because you can't fit all the government offices in City Hall. You know, this isn't Luling, Texas. So they needed another building, and they still can't fit all the government offices in that one. I mean, it's New York. You know, everything's bigger in New York. We got some beautiful trees here that I planted back in 1982. It's not true. And we got Woolworth Building, my favorite building in New York City, right behind me. It's the most beautiful building in the world, in my opinion. I'm biased because I love the man that created it, Frank Winfield Woolworth. I just had an idea. I'm gonna name my dog after him, Frank Winfield Woolworth, because he's just so incredible. I mean, it's a rags to riches story. I'm gonna take you through that, and then I'm gonna explain why so many buildings in New York are so freaking huge, and the reason is not just to fit employees and have offices in them. You know, there's a major reason behind that. So I'm gonna take you through that. I'm gonna go back to City Hall. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about City Hall. City Hall, this is the third City Hall in New York City. They've had various City Halls depending on what kind of rule they had, Dutch rule, British rule. This was built by the British during British rule. They figured that they needed a space that would accommodate the big city. This was a growing city in the late 1790s, and they came together with a plan and they built it. This was on the outskirts of town, and that's where they created it. One interesting fact, I mean, it is the oldest city hall in America that is still a city hall. It's been here since 1812, and at the time, they built the front. They were running low on money, and the architects were really fancy and using French aspects in the architecture. They really wanted to create something that was really special and timeless, and they did. They built the front with marble, which looks beautiful, and they built the back with regular brownstone, because they figured that nobody would go that north. I mean, all of New York City was concentrated south. Everybody was south of New York City Hall, so they figured, oh, no one's gonna go up there. It's so funny. 1812, the Manhattan grid plan passed, so the city rapidly starts to expand up north, and they figure, oh crap, you know, now everybody can see that we kind of cheated on the back of the city hall. We're not using marble there. So eventually, it took them quite a few decades. 1954, they decide we got to do this place justice, and they used Alabama limestone all around. They replaced everything, and now you have something that's beautiful and fit for Michael Bloomberg to sit in his big old office. All the security that's here is not just because of 9/11. There was there was a council member that shot another council member, and that council member was shot by one of the guards. Because of that, this was in 2003. Because of that, now even Michael Bloomberg himself has to go through the scanners and through security. At the time, if you were an elected official, you didn't have to go through any security. You were free to come in and out. But because of that horrible incident, now City Hall is a lot more strict on security. That's a pretty sad note, so we're gonna move to happy times. It's the Woolworth Building. Frank Winfield Woolworth. I'm gonna tell you the story about him, okay? Now this building is cost $13.5 million to make. It is officially 100 years old, celebrated its centennial on April 24th this year. They should have had like fireworks or something. They really didn't. And you can't even go into the building, which is pretty disappointing. There's a big sign that says no tourists. That's not the kind of building that you want that for. You know, you want that for like a building you don't care about. But a building this beautiful, you should be able to go in and explore it and touch the walls and like, you know, live in it for a few hours. But anyway, 57 floors up high, and it came together in 1913. Now, we're going to go back in time a few decades, mid-1800s. Now, here we've got this man, Frank Woolworth. He's born in Rodham, New York, upstate New York. It's a rags to riches story, like I said before, because he's born a poor guy, you know, to a family of potato farmers. And he grew to become one of the richest men in America. Now, he went to business school for like 2 years. He didn't really get a lot of that, I feel. I feel like he really got a lot out of a specific job that he did in his early 20s. He was a stock boy for about 5 years. He worked behind the counter at this store. Now, at the time, stores were not like they are today. It wasn't like, you know, you just walk into a CVS, pick out whatever you want. It would be that you'd have to approach the counter, bring your little shopping list, tell the clerk what you wanted to buy, and then he'd bring you whatever you needed, your toilet paper or whatever it is that you wanted to buy, and then you'd go out onto a merry life. But that would involve some sort of like quarreling and, you know, haggling over prices. There were no fixed prices, and you couldn't really touch and feel the merchandise that you wanted to buy, which is kind of disappointing. If I lived at that time, I'd be pretty annoyed by that, because I love like touching and anyway. So here he is, and his boss has a brilliant idea. He sets up a table of sale items where everything was 5 cents. And now little Frank here, he's sitting behind the counter. He realizes that customers really, really enjoy that idea, and that those items are really going fast. You know, customers like to experience the merchandise and come up and like touch the merchandise, and then they just go right up. It's fixed price, and they pay for it and they leave. So he takes that idea, he borrows some money from his boss, and he figures he's going to open up a store in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the only thing they have is that table, that 5 cent table. Now, that store, I'd love to tell you that it was a success. It wasn't. It failed. He opened up another store, and this time he figured, okay, well, I can have a little better merchandise for 10 cents. So I'll have the cheap, everyday goods for regular quality at 5 cents, and then I'll have the 10-cent goods, a little better quality, a little more expensive. And that store did really well. And years and years and years go by, and he's expanding and growing, and that's how it's started to expand. By the late 1800s, the Woolworth Corporation is one of the largest in the world, and he's really the creator of the 5 and dime concept. We can thank him, and not just the 5 and dime concept, but the concept of shopping today. Before Frank Woolworth, there was no such thing as just going in and grabbing, you know. Even at the store where the guy had the idea, you still had to deal with the clerk behind the counter, and he still had to get you the major stuff you wanted. So he kind of revolutionized that, and that's one of the reasons why I think he's such a cool guy. Another reason why I think he's such a cool guy is because during this time, right, it's the late 1800s, and little old Frank is observing what major businessmen are doing. He's a major businessman, and this guy obviously has an ego, and so he's observing and seeing that at this time in New York, there's a fight for skyscrapers. It's the age of skyscrapers, and people are building taller and taller and taller buildings. At the time, the Met Life building by I forgot the name of the park, 23rd and 5th, Madison Square Park, is the tallest building in the city. And he figures, okay, I want to build a building that's really high, and the reason for that is to make a commercial statement. So that's why they're building all these buildings that are really, really high, because they want to show power, they want to show their brand. You know, that's the whole idea behind the Chrysler building and all these major landmarks. And the Woolworth building is the same. He wanted to establish a strong foothold onto New York City. And if you go in, there's a bunch of personal touches, because he paid for the building in cash So he had a lot of power in creating it and everything. He recruited one of America's greatest architects at the time, Cass Gilbert, and nothing else to be said, but a lot more to be appreciated. You don't need to go inside to realize how amazing this building is. Just from the outside you can see how incredible all the details are. And we can thank Gilbert, but especially we can thank Frank Winfield Woolworth. Oh, forgot to tell you, Woolworth Corporation, the stores, the Woolworths stores, 5 and dime stores, were bought by Walmart. And eventually they got rid of the Woolworth name altogether. So I pose a question to you. I should have asked you at the beginning of the tour. I'm going to ask you now. How does this building, what does this building have to do with the clothes that you wear to the gym? Well, Woolworths Corporation eventually became the Foot Locker. So it's all linked in the family tree to little Frank Winfield Woolworth.